Coming in at number 18 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft rankings, it's Eduard Sale out of Czechia. Now, this guy, when I see him, I just see offense.
Yeah, definitely. He has a lot of offensive talent. That's for sure. I mean, there's even some quotes. EP has some EP scouts. This is a guy, Sale is a guy that divided elite prospect scouts, and some are so high on him, calling him a top 10 talent. So the talent is certainly there. You cannot, you can't go against that. I'll agree.
And why it's tough to evaluate him as well is he's in a league that doesn't get the shine that the other ones do. He plays in his native Czechia, right? So he's been playing pro since he was 15 years old, but it's not at the same level. Like a Dalibor Dvorsky left Slovakia at 16 so that he could play in a more competitive league in Sweden, whereas Eduard Sale went the kind of unconventional route and said, you know what? I want to stay home. Yep. And with that came 43 games with Brno, with the Czechia League. And I know our guy, Prague Senator, is going to be mad at my pronunciation. I'm sorry. We love you. We will get your pronunciations for some other Czechs we'll get to. But 7 goals, 7 assists, good for 14 points in 43 games, and really kept his nose out of any problems. Only 2 penalty minutes in 43 games this year. Played well at the World Under-18s, had 6 points in 5 games. And Pilsy, not only is elite prospects as a team divided on him, but so are our rankings as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bob McKenzie did not have him ranked. His rankings are only the top 12. Craig Button has him at 7th overall. Corey Pronman at 24th. Scott Wheeler at 14. Rachel Dory does not have him ranked. She only had a top 10 at time of recording. Chris Peters at 21. And Elite Prospects at 25th, giving Eduard Sale an average rank of 18.2.
What is the number one thing you noticed when you're watching clips of Eduard Sale?
Well, when I noticed is that he has a couple tricks up his sleeve that he likes to do. He loves the simple backhand deke through goalie's 5-hole, and it works. Definitely as a goaltender, Ross, we know that's a tricky one to get a read on, and you look silly when they just slide a backhand through your 5-hole. But Sale has really mastered that, and he has an accurate shot that he could just beat goalies clean with a soft shot. Like, he's not blazing with speed and power with that shot. It's just he's going to pick that corner and he'll float it top shelf on you. So definitely the talent is there. Now, that's the high-end talent part of Sale that some of the EP scouts love. I'd like to get to the opposite side of the spectrum here, Ross, because some of the EP scouts are not fond of Sale, and some of them even say, I'm not sure if this kid even likes playing hockey. And you mentioned that he stayed home. So clearly, you know, the drive to become a better prospect wasn't at the top of his list. Now, I'm not knocking him for that. Nothing wrong with being a kid and wanting to stay home and being comfortable in your environment. That's totally fine. But most of the prospects you see that have the skill and potential of Sale, at a certain age, they say, okay, I've got to move on to a next level, or I've got to try something different here. And it just seems like Sale did not do that. And you mentioned 2 PIMs. Well, to get penalty minutes, usually you got to be trying. Like, usually you're trying to stop plays from happening. Usually you're in the middle of battles. Usually you're all around the action. And from what I saw, Eduard Sale has no interest in doing that, Ross. I reference it reminds me of that guy in Beer League who always talks about, oh yeah, I would have went to the NHL, but I blew my knee out in college. And all he does is cherry pick at the blue line and waits for a pass and tries a dangle and misses the net. And you're calling for him to change on the ice, and he's just floating around, hanging out, doesn't care. That's what I get from Eduard Sale here, Ross. Sale is my lowest rated prospect yet. I've got him at 2.5 stars. I'm officially declaring Sale as a do not draft.
Whoa, do not draft.
Do not draft.
Like, you seem very sure about that too.
Well, just from what I'm reading and what I've watched, it just, like, I don't want to say arrogant, because obviously I don't know Eduard. I'm just reading stuff and watching, so I don't know his personality. But the vibes I'm getting is he just there's no drive. There's no motor.
Nikita Filatov vibes?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, Philly don't do rebounds. Sale don't do rebounds. And all you need to do is go to Elite Prospects. They have really great analytics on their guide, and not many of his analytics show very fairly. That's the thing. The skill is there, but it almost seems like he just kind of shrugs it off and is like, "Yeah, I've got this talent. I don't need or want to try that hard."
I have maybe the most apt quote here from Scott Wheeler. He might drive some coaches crazy, but you don't need all 12 of your forwards to be worker types. And I like him to become a talented playmaker who plays well off of drivers. So he gives me a bit of Mike Hoffman vibes. Like the talent's
Yep.
undeniable, but sometimes you're going to look and be like, what are you doing?
Here's the issue with that, Ross. That's correct. You don't need 12 guys to do that. But if you have one top tier guy that decides not to do that, well, then the other guys that are grinding and busting their ass are like, he's not doing it. He's getting top power play time. He's on the top line with our best playmakers. Why would I bust my ass if it's not gonna rise me or get me better in the coach's favor? So I just feel like this is a guy that could really cause issues in a locker room. And I mentioned before, Ross, I would way rather have a guy who doesn't have the talent but works hard, and you don't need to put that work ethic and drive into them, over a guy that has the talent and you got to find some way to motivate him. And that's what I'm getting from Sale here. So if I'm a team, I'm letting someone else roll the dice on him.
And that team you think could be in this 15 to 20 range, do you think?
I mean, it's tough to know because, like we've shown on our rankings, some people are high on him and some people are low on him. If you're asking me, if I'm a team between 10 and 20, I'm not touching him.
No, and you talk about some fair points, valid criticism, but there's a reason why Craig Button has him at 7th on his list, right? There's a reason why he's been able to produce at a higher clip than Jakub Voracek, Thomas Hertl in the same age category. The talent is there.
Yep.
He's an offensive weapon, but it does make it a harder one to really want, because you talk like we're a Senator show, and if you're watching this right after Eduard Sale was picked on your favorite team, there is potential there. There's no doubt there is potential there. But when the Senators talk about how they draft, it's always the person first. And I'm not saying he's a bad person. Again, I don't know him.
Yeah.
But you want a guy who is competitive, and maybe this is the better way to put it. The Senators always make sure they draft kids who adore hockey, who love hockey, because to be the best, you have to be all in all the time. So I would be a little curious, a little hesitant perhaps about that with Eduard Sale, but the talent is undeniable for the man who comes in at number 18 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft rankings. We're going to have plenty of these, so head over on YouTube, and each individual profile is there for you for the top 70 NHL Draft prospects.